Hello boys and girls, welcome to the Math Club. In this video, we're going to talk about 1.2 Indices. Question 6. Write each number as a fraction raised to a power. Now these fractions here, we're going to do the opposite of what we did in question 5. So we're going to turn these into fractions with a raised power. Now how do we do this? In this question, we're going to use the calculator and we're going to use the square root and the cube root. Now, how do we use them? First, let me show you how do we do this on question A. First, let's cover the rest of the questions so we have space to work on it. We'll cover these. We will work on each one alone, okay? So first we have question A, 16 over 100. Now to check if the number is squared or cubed, it means we have to run it under the square root or the cube root. So the first thing that we do, we check using the square root and the cube root. Let me put it here so we can check together, okay? So we use the square root like this and the cube root. Now we can use them in the calculator. The cube root is something like this with a 3 on top of the root. Let's make it smaller so you can see it. Now, first thing we do, we take this number, which is the numerator, we put it in the square root and check the answer that we got. Okay? And then we put it in the cube root and check the answer that we got. If we get decimal numbers, we're not going to use the number. If we don't get decimal numbers, it means we can use it, okay? So first let me write equal so you understand the idea. So first we take the 16, we put it here. So 16 here, when you use a calculator, it's going to give us 4. So the answer for 16 or square root of 16 is 4. And then if we use the cube root here, 16 under the cube root, it's going to give us, let's check, cube root of 16, it's going to be 2.51. 2.51. And as I said, we don't want to use decimals, so we're not going to use this one, and we're going to use the 4, which is a whole number. So first thing we understand that we used the square root. And using the square root, it means we're going to use the number which is here. And we understand that the number here is square, which is power of 2. So we're going to use it here. Now we understand that this one is a square root. So we write 4. And then we use the power on the square root, which is 2. So it's going to be 4 to the power of 2. Let's make this bigger so you understand the idea here. So 4 to the power of 2, like this. Now this one is smaller. Good. Now we understand why did we use power of 2? Because we didn't get any decimals with the square root. That's why we're using power of 2, which is this one. Now, because we used the square root for the numerator, we have to use the square root for the denominator. So we're going to do the same with the 100. We're going to put it here and check what's the answer. So this one is going to be 100. This one. 100. And we will check what we will get. After putting 100 in the square root, it will give me, very good, it will give me 10. Good job. So I'm going to use 10 here. And because I used the square root for the numerator, I have to do the same for the denominator. So now I'm going to get 10 here. Let me remove this. I'm going to put a fraction line like this. And 10 to the power of the same thing, which is 2. Now, because this one is a square root, it's going to be 10 to the power of 2. Now, first, let me make this bigger. 10 to the power of 2. Like this. Good. Now, because I have power of 2 here and power of 2 here, it means I have to do what? Very good. I have to take the power outside. So I'm going to take both powers like this outside of the bracket. So I'm gonna draw a bracket like this and a bracket like this, and I'm gonna take the powers. I'm gonna take one of them, not both of them, so I'm gonna put it here. So both powers became 1 here, and I'm gonna write what's left here. So 4 over 10. So I'm gonna write 4 here over 10, like this. Okay, and this is the final fraction raised to a power, and this is how you answer a question like this. So you have to follow the same steps. Use the square root and the cube root. If you have decimals, don't use it. If you don't have decimals or you have a whole number, you can use it for the numerator and the denominator. Now this is for question A. Now let's check the next one. Let me first remove these. We're gonna do B. Same steps, same idea. Let me first remove the numbers, and then we will do B. Okay. Still B. Question B, same idea. I have 9 over 49. So I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna take that, let me remove, put this back, yes. I'm gonna take the number, the numerator, and put it inside the square root. Same idea, I'm gonna put it inside the cube root. One of them will give me a decimal, so I'm not gonna use it. Once we put the square root of 9 here, the answer will be what? It will be 3. Very good. And if I put it in the cube root here, I'm gonna get numbers that have decimal points. For example, let me try it here. So the cube root of 9 will be 2.08. So it's gonna be 2.08. And because 2.08 has decimals, I'm not gonna use it. And I'm gonna use the square root. And because I used the square root for the numerator, I have to do the same for the denominator. Now, because I'm not using this, I'm gonna cover it. And I'm gonna use the square root because I didn't get decimal numbers here. So I'm gonna use the square root. Now, I'm gonna put a fraction line like this. So 9 became 3 and the power is 2. Very good. The power is 2. Focus, when you use the square root, the power is 2. If you use the cube root, the power is 3. So this one's going to be 3. Let's make it bigger. And the power is 2. Let's put it like this. Focus on the steps so you'll understand the idea. Now, because I used the square root with 9, I have to use the square root with 49. So I'll put 49 under the square root, and the answer will be 7. So this one will be 7. You can check with the calculator, and you'll get 7, because 7 times 7 is 49. Now, as we said, the power will be 2, which is the power on the square root. So this one is 2. Okay. Now, because we have the same power, I can do it like this. I can do a bracket like this and this. And I can take the power, which is 2, and put it outside here. Now, I can write the fraction that I left, which is 3 over 7. So it's going to be 3 over 7. Let's make it bigger. 7. And this is the fraction raised to a power. And this is how you answer a question like this. Now, let me show you another one that uses the cube root. Okay? First, let me remove these. Now, leave this, cover this, okay? Square root. This one uses square root too, because 25, when you put it here, it's going to be 5. And 64, when you put it here, is going to be 8. So it's going to be 5 over 8, and the power will be 2. Okay? Let's check this. We have 8 and 64. Now, let's work this one, okay? So we have 8 over 64. we're going to do the same steps. We're going to put the 8 in the square root and the cube root and check which one will give me a non-decimal or the whole number. Now I'll put 8 here, I'll put 8 here. When I do 8 or square root of 8, what will I get? I'll use a calculator to check. So the square root of 8 is 2.8. It's 2.8. So this is a decimal number, 2.8. And when I put or find the cube root of 8, the answer will be 2. And because this one has a decimal number, I'm not going to use it like this. Put x next to it. And the other one doesn't have decimal number, so I have to use the cube root. And because I use the cube root with the numerator, I have to use it with the denominator. So I'll put 8 here first. Let me put a fraction line. Then 8 will be what? Will be 2, and the power is, very good, it's going to be 3 because it's the cube root. So power of 3. And because I use the cube root with the numerator, I have to use it with the denominator. So I'm going to put 64 under the cube root in the calculator. So I'm going to say cube root of 64. Sorry. Cube root of 64. And the answer is 4. So it's going to be 4. Yes. And the power is the same, which is 3. Very good. Now, after finding the fractions with powers, I'm going to use the same power, which is the 3 here. And I'm going to draw the brackets outside, like this. And put the power outside, which is 3. And then put the same fraction that I left here, which is 2 over 4. Like this. Let's make it bigger. Make a fraction line, and this is the idea of the question. So we understand when do we choose the square root and when do we choose the cube root, and this is the idea of the whole question. Now let's check the rest of the questions and see if there's any difference or new ideas. Let's remove all of these. Okay, now D is done. Let's check E. Sorry. Same idea with E. I'm going to put 16 under the square root. It's going to be 4. I'm going to put 16 under the cube root, and it will give me decimal numbers. In this case, I'm going to use the square root because I can't use it with the cube root. Now, I'll check the cube root of 16. Always make sure that you check. Cube root of 16 is 2.5, so I can't use it. So I have to use the square root with 16 and 625. And then I use power of 2 and then take it outside of the bracket. This is the idea of question E. Now, let's check if we skipped one of the questions here. Yes, we have F. With F, same idea. I have to check the square root and the cube root. Now, there's something different in F, which is what? The numerator is 1. The numerator 1 works in both roots. It works with square roots and cube roots. Once you put 1 here, the answer will be 1. And once you put 1 here, you have to focus on this fact, okay? And once you put 1 here, on even this one, the answer is 1. So this one works with square roots and cube roots. How do you decide which one you're going to choose? Depending on the denominator. The denominator here is 27. 27, if you put it under the square root, it will give you decimal numbers, because the square root of 27 is 5.19. So you can't use the square root with 27. So I have to use the cube root, because the cube root of 27 is 3. Very good. So in this case, I'm going to use the cube root, and the power will be 3. And this is the idea of answering a question like this. If you don't understand the steps, go back, watch the video again, follow the steps, and you'll get the idea. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.